Recording in progress. Hi, guys. Welcome to another Where the Mind Wanders with Spoons and Joe. I'm Joe, and that's is Spoons. Hi, Spoons.
Hey there.
Like usual, we're just gonna let the mind wander. It's kind of funny because I really don't have nothing on the mind today. Well, actually, we were having a discussion that I think was pretty cool earlier, or we're both having the same like experience, like waking up out of sleep lately. Um, the last two mornings, I've become conscious while I was still asleep. Um, the body hadn't come online yet, so to speak. like that part of the I am of being a body did not come yet. But I became conscious, and I was still like that peacefulness that you have when you're sleeping, but without the body, and the mind would start to think. And in my case, anyway, the mind would start to think, and the same contemplations that I do through the day, I started doing in that state where
Hmm.
the mind started to produce a thought and then consciousness let it go. So I became
Yeah.
like contemplating without the body. like I guess I can describe it and being aware that I am, but not becoming a person yet. Like Joe didn't come online yet. Like the ego for the most part, even though it was trying to kickstart, that's why those thoughts kept appearing. I would kept, for lack of a better term, be like, I know that's a dream. I'm letting that go. Like the mind would start
Hmm.
thinking about work or something like that, and it start to dream, and then I would just let it go. And there's just like this infinite space of awareness, I guess. And that would go on who knows how long before I'd eventually, come conscious that I was in my room and like the fan was on or whatever. And that's happened
Hmm.
to me the last couple mornings, and we were talking about that earlier, and a very similar thing you were describing. I'm like, wow, yeah, I have something really similar going on. So you want to describe what's been going on with you?
Yeah. So it's really been the last week or two. I have several times just I wake up, and so you're not in the dream state anymore, but you're not awake. So it's kind of like in this haze. But I see a very vivid place. Um, and it's just I don't know, it's this beautiful garden full of sunshine and spring, basically. But it's not like a dream. And there's no I don't know what form I would be in if I was in a form in this place. I don't feel like I have a body. So that in that sense it was very similar.
Mm,
Uh, One of the things I kind of thought it might be is sort of like a visualization of my Reiki practice because there was like this warmth. And if you've ever had Reiki, sometimes the body has that effect where I don't know, it's just like a warmth that you feel. And when I did finally come out of it, it was it feels like the sunshine had penetrated to my bones. So it's like it's 28 degrees outside. There's no sunshine that's going to shine through the window and make me feel that way. It was a really cool experience. This happened at least 3 times in the last couple of weeks. So I don't know. There's like this. I've been in this in between kind of place a lot, but that's the first time it's kind of manifested in this specific way. So it's kind of cool.
yeah, yeah, it's almost like what we're like you were saying, like what you were doing with Reiki was just going on that sleep. And that's kind of the same thing. Like that's what kind of like triggered. I'm like, wow, there's definitely a pattern there because I'm literally having my
Mm-hmm.
contemplation before the body comes online. And
Yeah.
it's a lot easier to let it go. And from that state, I know it's a dream. I know this reality is a dream. Like when I start thinking about work, I'm like, why am I trying to dream that? There's almost like this feeling like it's like silly. Like it's like, why am I want to dream that? Because I could feel like there's like this anxiety there. Not horrible anxiety. It's just like this like stressful, like got to do this, got to do that kind of deal.
Hmm.
And then it's kind of like, dude, why do you want to start that? Like, let that go, let that go. Um, and I have to say, yeah, from at least in my experience, it feels like, um, yeah, I don't know, call it the next level of self, um,
Yeah.
is kind of online and watching it, um, before your whole like separateness completely comes into manifestation and when you wake up, like,
Hmm.
and
Kind of like whatever intentions we're kind of focusing towards or manifesting while we're sleeping.
mm,
And you get a glimpse of it in that in between, how it's just starting to play in the background. Because, yeah, after October, when I went back and did another Reiki course, I would just wake up. I've woken up several times and I'm just like, Reiki. My Reiki in my hands is just on. And I'm like, oh, okay, well, I guess I'm doing some work, channeling some stuff while I'm sleeping. And that's cool. Um, and yours is more of that setting your contemplation. So, yeah, that makes perfect sense.
sleep's an interesting thing anyway. I've come across this, especially talked about by Nisargadatta Maharaj. But the most interesting thing I came across was in the Upanishads, which is like the ancient Vedic holy scriptures, 5000 BC kind of a deal, really old stuff. And I guess it was attributed to Krishna, but don't quote me on that. I don't know. But regardless, uh, there's this one in the Apache. I sent you an audio recording like a while ago. It was like one that really spoke to me. There was a couple. The Apache is kind of, it's beautiful, a beautiful text, but it's like, there was a couple that stood out. And that was one of them. It was
Mhm.
entitled in English, "The Path of Immortality," and in that they spoke about the self, mm, God, so to speak, the you that's dreaming, and they spoke of four states of essentially consciousness. There's the waking state where they describe it where the senses are turned outward. Then the dreaming
Mhm.
state, which what we would call a dream, or as we normally understand a dream, where the senses are turned inward.
Mhm.
Then there's sleep, like dreamless sleep, and then there's the enlightened state of where you realize you're the one that is experience. There's a higher you experiencing the sleep state, the dream state, and the waking state. So those three states are like below, like all being from the consciousness of the thing that's quote unquote dreaming, I guess, for a lack of better explanation. It's hard to describe. But
Yeah.
well, one thing they said in that, and also Nisargadatta Maharaj was saying in his book, I Am That, to one of the questioners. It was saying that as one becomes more in the enlightened state, um, they start becoming conscious while in the dreamless state. Because in the dreamless state is already like uh, uh, infiniteness, eternalness, infiniteness. It's just you experience normally oblivion because it's relative to the dream state or the waking state where stuff is going on. But there's
Mhm.
already an infinite state where you more or less merge into God. When you're sleeping, you're just not aware of it because it's relative that you keep popping into the waking, and then you experience like this oblivion. But you knew you slept good. You knew it was
Mhm.
peaceful. You knew you're relaxed. You're happy. Everybody loves going to sleep. Um, um, and to me, it's proven like if you can't go to sleep, Like if you can't go into that state, like you literally go mad, like or your
Oh
body
yeah.
breaks down.
Hmm.
Like people have insomnia. I've had insomnia off and on at points in my life. It's like torture.
Hmm.
Like all you want to do is go into that state, and it's almost like it's like you merge back into God, so your body and the mind can heal because all the damage you've done to it through the waking state or the dream state or whatever, and you need to go merge back into that state or to experience that infinite bliss so you can heal because it's the power of God that heals you, so to speak. And
Yeah.
if you can't, like you literally go mad or and your body starts breaking down pretty quickly. Like you have to sleep, like because it's just literally that's what it feels like. You do too much wear and tear and damage uh, being awake, and especially if you think a lot, blah blah blah. Like um,
Hmm.
you have to merge back into that state. But anyway, they were saying in that the Upanishads that as you become closer to that fourth state, they were talking about the enlightened state, is that you become more and more aware and less oblivion and more aware in the sleep state, where there
Uh-huh.
is no dream, internal or external. And I
Interesting.
remember one of the visitors to Maharaj, Nisargadatta Maharaj, for people who don't know, he's most famous for the book I Am That. He didn't write the book. He was this guy. He sold cigarettes in I think Mumbai or one of those big Indian cities. He was like lived in the city. He was a pretty religious, devoted man, like to like things like the Bhagavad Gita or the Indian spiritual traditions that people, but like through his life. Um, when he was in his mid 30s, he met his guru, and the guru was only alive at not even that long. It was like weeks or months he knew him before the guru dropped the body, so to speak. And he told Maharaj, because he wanted to know what's the truth. He goes, the truth is you are like you you are not what you think you are. You are not the mind. You are not the body. You are the infinite self. That is me. That is everybody. That's dreaming all of us up. And take it as the absolute truth. And Maharaj would be like, how do I come to realize this? He goes, and the guru said, just focus on the feeling I am, immerse into it constantly. Always bring your awareness in a state of contemplation back to that you exist. I am like, but not verbally. The sensation that you exist, because right now we all exist. There's no denying
Right.
it. We're just not paying attention to it because we're stuck in the mind or whatever. So he told him to
Hmm.
keep doing that, and after 3 years, Maharaj became that state himself. And at first, he experienced what some of them experienced, what they call God shock, where he literally just the body wandered into the Himalayas or something like that, and like people found him there and said, "You got to go back to your home. He had a wife and blah blah blah." And he went back to his shop. He had like a tobacco shop downstairs and a little apartment upstairs, and he literally just lived, became a hermit, and just lived there. But word got around the city like this hey, this Maharaj guy, he got enlightened, so people would start visiting him and asking him questions. And then the word got out. And it was at the time where a lot of Westerners were going to India, and uh, they would everybody's looking for a guru, and Maharaj didn't had no interest in being a guru. He wasn't even a person anymore. He had a body that was doing its thing. He became a legitimate bodhisattva, so to speak, where he, for whatever
Hmm.
reason, he stayed in the world. He didn't leave his like little bitty shop, but people would come visit him and ask him questions. And most people would just get bored because he would just tell them the same thing over and over. It's like, look, more or less, he would tell them even his things. Look, the truth is not that hard. Like you're making it more complex than it really is. And that's what a lot of people drive on complexity. It's really the higher the truth, the
Yeah.
simpler it really gets. It's just harder to realize because you got blinders on. But anyway, Maharaj would tell people constantly when they're like, "I don't understand this. I am. I don't understand like what you're talking about." He goes, "Are you? Do you exist when you're sleeping? Like, what is experiencing the sleep? Like, that would be his easiest way to get him into that contemplation. What do you experience when you sleep? Like when there's
Hmm.
no dream going on whatsoever, what is still there? Because that's the true you,
Yeah.
what's still there. And if you could become a conscious in that state, you get closer to the truth. And yeah, like I said earlier, I saw that in the Upanishads, and that kind of spoke to me. And um, if you really, if you do contemplate constantly, I am not I am like in verbalizing it, just the sensations that you are like it's non-linear, it's a context. Hold that
Hmm.
context. That's basically what contemplation is. It's context. It's holding the context. We're all contemplating at all moments, all the time. All
Hmm.
contemplation as a spiritual practice is becoming conscious of that context, conscious of that context. Like right
Yeah.
now, there's a context that you're in a room right now. Um, and I'm doing this podcast and on and on and on. And that is the context of this experience right now. And
Hmm.
there is always a context, but most of the time you were unconscious of it. Like even context, it's like hard to explain, right? It's like non-linear. It's like
Hmm.
all this knowingness at once. Um, and it's contemplation as a spiritual practice is just taking conscious control over what you're doing all the time anyway. Like it's like and to contemplate certain contexts that you know are high truths, like Maharaj would give, hey, you exist, you are, I am, like hold that context, keep holding it, keep bringing yourself back. And it what you do, the more you contemplate in a certain context, is it starts arranging the mind and arranging the world around you. So
Hmm.
you start getting insights to revelation, not from a book, but from revelation, and things just all of a sudden click. It could take months, years,
Hmm.
but just coming back to the same higher context, higher context, higher context. And one of the traditional ways of finding enlightenment for Yana or Advaita, they call it sometimes, not the path of non-duality, is contemplating simply, I am. What is
Yeah.
aware? What is aware? Like you're aware of the body, but you're not the body. You're aware of the mind, like, but what is aware of the mind? What's aware of the thoughts? Like, what's
Hmm.
aware of the breathing? Like, that's what is aware of the sleeping state. What is aware of the dreaming state? You're dreaming. You have this dream, but what is aware of the dreaming? Like, how do you know that
Hmm.
you're dreaming? Like, on and on and on. Just keep calling, coming back to it, and the more you do so consciously, the more it unfolds. It's kind of like using, I don't want to call it that, but in a similar way, like the law of attraction or whatever. Um, just bringing back to this context so that things unfold, because that is one of the paths to enlightenment. I mean, there's all kinds of ones, through the heart, bhakti, whatever, but that's like one of the calming practices, and one that the more I've done it, the more interesting things happen. I guess I could say so. Um, but
Yeah.
yeah, so that it's interesting. I'm becoming aware. I am in that sleep state. Like,
Yeah.
uh,
Yeah. I don't know. I still, it's interesting to kind of think about. I mean, I felt formless in that state, but I still felt me, you know? Like I didn't necessarily feel like part of an all or necessarily anything like that. But there's this other layer to it where there's something else there with me that's just out of my line of sight, no matter how I turned or whatever. And not like in a negative sense. It's just like there's something just out of the corner of your eye that you might catch, but maybe that's the all. I don't know. Who knows what it was? I don't know. Did you feel like in yours you were still you, or do you feel more like you were part of the all?
well, that's the thing. Um, people like Maharaj or Ramana Maharshi or even David R. Hawkins or like any of these people that you would consider reached the enlightened states say that you just experience a new I because
Hmm.
the you or the I, the me, whatever, just goes to the next level. It's like, okay, I think I'm I as Joe, but obviously
Hmm.
there's another I, in the new agey kind of thing, they would say, your higher self or whatever, um,
Hmm.
whatever you want to call it. Um, but as you go into it more in the enlightened states, there's less of a duality between you and God, and it becomes more I and more I and more I, infinite back to source, allegedly. Like, it's just experiencing a deeper I, a more true I, a more eternal
Hmm.
I. Like, um, somebody has to be dreaming.
Right.
Find a dreamer, like, or Ramana
Yeah.
Maharshi would say, just constantly contemplate, what am I? Like, what am I? Uh, to whom is this thought arising? Who's aware of the thought? Like, who is aware of the body? Who's aware of the mind? Who's aware of the consciousness? Who's aware of the
Yeah.
awareness? Like on and on and on. Um, um, and yeah, allegedly it goes infinitely back to the source. It never stops, but there is higher truth. Um, it's obviously like if you were dreaming in sleep and you had this dream and then you woke up and you're like, oh, I guess I wasn't that whatever in the dream. I'm this person here, like in this apartment.
Hmm.
I have this name, I have this family, whatever, on and on and on. Like, it's the same, a very similar thing, but the thing about the body mind is it's going to die. um,
Right.
Whatever this is, that's dreaming the body mind does not die. And then that
Hmm.
goes back to like we were talking about last, with the Buddha, or the Buddha didn't say, I want to be enlightened. He demanded, I don't like this whole idea of death and sickness and old age. There's got to be a better way, and I'm going to find it out if it kills me. Like,
Right.
and two, he became enlightened, or which literally with the Buddha means the awakened one, I believe is the translation. Like,
Hmm.
I'm, oh, wait a minute, I don't die. I'm actually eternal. Like, and this was
Right.
just a dream, and on and on and on. Um, uh,
Yeah.
or Christ would talked about a very similar thing if you read through the New Testament. He says you're eternal, like, heaven's within you. Um,
Hmm.
um, that which you are doesn't die; it has eternal life. Those who come to me, which I get, that goes into like all these terminologies that religions have twisted over years. But Christ was talking about the same thing the Buddha was talking about, or Krishna talked about. Like, it's um, don't put your treasures in the world where thieves can steal them, where the body's going to die, on and on and on. You should
Hmm.
focus on the part of you that lives forever. Like, and people like in the Christian kind of faith, especially, kind of twist it like, oh, that means when you die, so you're pretty much screwed, you stupid sinner, and then you're gonna die, and then you go to heaven. It's like, no, it is irrelevant if you have a body or not. Like, that's when you have the body and you're still around, you're called a Buddha. Or if you still have a body when you're enlightened, you're technically a bodhisattva. That's actually the true meaning of what a bodhisattva was, originally. Over time it got kind of twisted, and now it's like a, for centuries now, even it's like a kind of like a monk order where you take this vow, and you say, I'm not going to leave until everybody's enlightened. So it's like you kind of didn't understand the original meaning. The original meaning was you became a Buddha, and for
Hmm.
whatever reason you didn't go into nirvana. Like, you stayed, you kept the body, and you started teaching people, but there
Yeah.
was no personal you there anymore to start teaching people. It was that higher consciousness that now is moving that body around, that is teaching people, like with Christ, when Christ said, I'm the son, everybody comes to the Father through the Son, blah, blah, blah. What was he talking about? Like, um
Yeah.
like yeah, a bodhisattva was originally a Buddha that just didn't go into nirvana yet, and for whatever reason, by the will of God, stayed around to teach. But there was no personal him anymore. That part had been let go, been dropped. He just, for whatever
Right.
reason, the will of God wanted to keep this body walking around to start teaching people. Like, and that was the original meaning of the bodhisattva, and it got kind of twisted over time because people really don't know what enlightenment is.
Hmm.
They still think there's a personal them that's going to become enlightened. No, it's when the personal you goes and you see the dreamer, like uh, um,
Yeah.
you become enlightened. Like that's the point. Like the point is that you drop the personal self and that there is no personal will anymore. That is completely surrendered to God. And it's the will of God. If the body goes or doesn't go or whatever it does from that moment on, if you just stop breathing and go into nirvana, or you the body keeps walking around, it's not your personal will doing it anymore. Like there
Right.
was never there like a formal vow that you're going to, from a personal ego and personal will, that said I'm going to stay and teach everybody. No, it's that was going on beyond a personal self anymore. Like that was literally the will of God. Like um
Yeah.
but anyway.
No, that makes sense. I don't know. We've had that conversation about what a path to enlightenment could look like. Like, I think probably for most people, you know, it's always good to look up to the mountain. But I don't know that everybody's supposed to get to the top of the mountain. And once you get to the top of the mountain, I don't know. I mean, it makes sense to me that some people would just hit that state and be like, okay, peace out. And then others come back down and teach. So I definitely see why you would need both. But I don't think you can know if that's actually your path. I think you can't know which one of those you're gonna get.
No, I agree. Like that's in a sense up to the will of God.
Yeah.
What's your path and what this incarnation is about? Like I don't think everybody, especially if you can't let the idea of letting you go as a personal entity, like if that bothers you, that's probably not your path at this point. According to the
Yeah.
Buddha, eventually everybody is going to um reach enlightenment because it just makes sense. Eventually you're gonna get
Mhm.
tired of the dream. I certainly can vibe with that. And but if that's not your if that scares you, if you can't accept that, maybe that's not what you're supposed to do. But here's the thing: is like any just being a better person than you were yesterday is getting closer to the source and closer to the truth. And then
Yeah.
there it goes all the way to the saints, where the saints were technically completely surrendered to God. That's what made them a saint. And but they still were a separate. They still had a dream, but the dream became extremely pleasant. But it was because they were surrendered to God, not because their
Yeah.
personal ego said, I want to do this. I want to do this. I want to do this. Even with the best intentions, is that you're, I don't know how to put it, but you're too stupid to know what you're supposed to be doing. Like the human mind is flawed. Like you might have good intent, but even like being a better person you were yesterday is still go closer to the source. And then all the way up to sainthood, where the saint is not technically enlightened, but they are so surrendered to God that the dream is they've gave the dream over to God, so to speak. Maybe they didn't wake up from the dream yet, but they gave it over to and God used them to do miracles and all kinds of things on and on and on. Like it's a beautiful thing.
Mhm.
Like it's really you got to sit down and ask yourself, what do you want personally? And you have to like be truthful to with that. Um, I don't think everybody's supposed to go all the way to the top of the mountain. Not in this life
No.
anyway. And as long as
No.
you're a better person than you were yesterday, you're already moving that direction. So like I don't think everybody is supposed to become enlightened in this life. I don't know if I'm supposed to be, but I'll straight up tell
Right.
you as the audience that I find a dream. While I want the dream to be as good as it can while I'm here, I dreaming is getting kind of boring to me, knowing that I'm dreaming. Like it kind of lost its kind of like pizzazz. Like it's like
Mm.
I enjoy my friends. I love my woman. I enjoy a good meal, like on and on. Um, but it's like I know that this is not real. Um, and I'm not telling you that you have to think the same way, but I do understand that just being a better person and healing your inner wounds on and on and on is already getting you closer to that.
Yeah.
And eventually, at least according to the Buddha, everybody is going to be divinely inspired, so to speak. But
Yeah.
I guess the point I'm making is, even though this is my intention, I do not believe that's everybody's path, and I don't think I'm better. Like I'm literally trying to get rid of
Right.
the thing that you would say would think it's better. Like it's like not get rid of it,
It's
but
a
like just
conundrum.
yeah, like it's just I don't know. I don't think it's up to us, our personal will.
No.
I really do think it's up to the will of God, and you accept your dharma, so to speak, or you don't.
Hmm.
You either resist it or you go with it. Like, but like I think we discussed in an earlier episode, I don't know, it was one that aired, is like you were born into this life with certain abilities and certain talents and a certain body, and things just happened, and there's no explanation for it. And it's like I don't see any other explanation other than there already is kind of a will of a God going on for this lifetime, and you either can align with that, which they call traditionally dharma, or you can resist it and go a different direction, and you find yourself in a different energy and a different consciousness that will go on and on and on, because life doesn't, even if the body mind dies, the spirit keeps going. And it seems to, if you hold a certain energy and certain thinking patterns and certain energy patterns and emotional patterns and thoughts that I'm a human with 5 fingers and blah blah blah, that you like goes to like, and you reincarnate into that.
Hmm.
Or I think as Vivekananda, his name was, put it good in one of his lectures, is the best way I can explain like karma is, or the spirit, how it reincarnates is, think of like a whirlwind. And when you incarnate, that whirlwind picks up all the earthly elements, and now you see like a little tornado thing. But
Hmm.
technically, it's just because it's picking up stuff, and then when it stops picking up stuff, it keeps going, but it's invisible. But it's the same pattern and wind speed and blah blah blah, and then it hits the next thing where it starts picking stuff up and it takes form again. And that's how he explained reincarnation, which I thought was a really good allegory. Um,
Yeah.
um,
Yeah. I don't know. It's interesting to kind of think about. Like, as far as the goal of enlightenment, the, when I started doing this letting go kind of process, it wasn't about that. It was about relief from pure agony. So that's what got me to start doing the inner work. But I mean, you have so many perspective shifts as you do the work. I suppose there's always some form of enlightenment that comes with that. I don't know that it's like top of the mountain enlightenment, but
illumined, I guess. Yeah, become more
yeah,
illuminated. You see more of the clarity, more of the truth, more love. You get closer to the source.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Like I would say this past week, I don't know. I feel like the whole month of December, we have these conversations. I get these little connect the dot things happening and let some shit go every week after we have these conversations because they just, I don't know, they connect these interesting dots. And so December was a little bit tough because I kept finding myself not very grounded. Um, but this last week, what I've noticed is it's more of a duality. I don't have like this spin out. Um, I'm having the spin out, but simultaneously I'm having the calm. So it's like this interesting duality where the mind is going literally back and forth between uh, torment and peace as it's trying to gain this new perspective on something. It's fascinating. I'm like, I don't know if this is. I assume it's some sort of progress, but at the same time, I'm like, I don't really know what it means because it's such a strange feeling to be processing and also still feel very grounded because I'm not used to that. Usually, it's like this more chaotic thing for a few days. Sometimes sometimes when I've had like a really big perspective shift, I'll call it a spiritual hangover because it's like I don't know how else to kind of explain it other than that. You know, it's like it takes a totality on your body. So that requires a lot of rest. I think a lot of people might just call that like the dark night of the soul sort of stuff, but it takes a while to kind of recover from. But like I said, all December, it was like I was just every week doing a little mini process, little cycle of that. And because of that, it feels like it's finding more of a stability.
Yeah,
So I don't know.
we all go through that. That's the thing. Like the work is not comfortable most of the time. You break through, and then all of a sudden you feel like, oh my God, incredible bliss, whatever, clarity, like on and on and on. But the what's spawning that, like the intention to get better, means you have to face certain darkness inside of you, like um, wounds that from this lifetime or lifetimes, certain things you hold that were true that turned out not to be, that could be part
Mm-hmm.
of your identity, on and on and on. It's painful, like to admit you're wrong. Like the one of the biggest things that you will confront inside yourself is like this need to be right. Like and people, it's like the core of human ego. Like everybody's got it. I have it. Spoons has it. Everybody listening has it. Everybody on this planet who has a human body has it. It's like something really primal in us, and
Yeah.
it literally kill you if it can, if it if you don't tame it. Like it, and literally, like throughout history, people have literally died rather than admit they were wrong. Like
Oh, absolutely.
people sacrificed their entire other people, not just themselves, but other people, entire nations, rather than admit they were wrong.
Mm-hmm.
Like it will sacrifice all of humanity, like to then rather admit that it is wrong. You have that inside you, and you will have to confront it. Like
Mm-hmm.
we all will have to confront it. Like I catch it all the time. Like
Yeah.
why do I need this? And it's such like this driving force. Um, and like we were talking about last week of the inner animal. Like there's all kinds of things like that going on inside of us. Like not just that one particular one. That one's a strong one that will kill you. Like that one will
Mm-hmm.
literally throw you off a cliff. Like if you do not get it handled. Um
Yeah.
but there's other ones inside, like inside you, like things we face, like even like yeah, the sex drive, the like um the hunger. Like there's a reason like the fasting and stuff is part of like spiritual practices and whatnot. Like
Mm-hmm.
or even the you're right or thing, like that's a lot of from what I understand, like the vow of silence even was tied into that one. So because you know, when the vow of silence, you can't prove that you're right. Like, like you're gonna have to deal with that energy now, right? It's like you can't talk, like, or or lie. Or we all have this thing in us that would that lies, like to make
Yeah.
ourselves comfortable, to
Mm-hmm.
get what we want. On and on and on. It's like these things you have to confront inside yourself, or you cannot rise spiritually? Do you have to confront them? And at first, they're going to torment you, like as you're
Yes.
confronting them, because normally people just go unconscious and they do it, like they just get they don't deal with it. But the
Yeah.
minute you become conscious of it and you say, I want to be better, now you're going to start dealing with it. And then it's going to like force you into these spirals or these dark nights of the soul or on and on and on. And
Mm,
it wants you to confront it and let that energy out, let it go, like recontextualize it. So things like contemplation or meditation help, or prayer. Prayer is about context, right? Prayer is always like, in its truest sense, is a surrender to God, as taught
hmm.
by what prayer is by Jesus Christ in like the book of Matthew with the Lord's Prayer. The Lord's Prayer was not a prayer. It was what prayer is. Look at the whole context of that chapter. He said, when you pray, this is what prayer is. He didn't say robotically say the Lord's Prayer. He said, this is what prayer is. Prayer is faith that God will provide. Prayer is that God is all the glory. That is everything happens by the will of God. Thy will be done. Like it's setting an overall context. Prayer is a
Yeah.
context of surrender to God, and by surrendering to God truly and surrendering all these ego things to that energy in a state of contemplation, like the miraculous happens. Like and you get insight and um,
Yeah.
truly, true surrender. Like is the Lord's Prayer. Like, but not like contemplate the context of it. Like, don't say the
Yeah.
words. Don't think about it. Contemplate the context of what he was
Oh
saying.
man.
Uh, that's prayer.
That kind of yeah. I was just gonna say that kind of surrender is just oh, it's tough. Like I don't know if you feel this way about any of the stuff you're letting go, but the last few weeks. So like before when I was letting stuff go, it's almost like letting it float away on the wind, like releasing it. But the last couple of weeks it's different. It's like actually surrendering it over to God and like placing it back because I there's like these things that come up and there's so much confusion and I want my brain is wanting to label all of this stuff so I can understand it. And the thing is you can't understand some of these things. So I just keep going, okay, here, it's back to you, God, because I don't know what to do with it. I don't understand it and you can give it back to me when it's time for me to understand it. But also I'm hovering.
Yeah,
So it's like
can't help it.
I keep having to go right back and like, okay, it's prepped back in again. Let me just place it back. But I'm still hovering.
Yeah, yeah.
It's
I think
just
that's just natural. It's just like
yeah,
we already set into motion. One of the greatest analogies I think was in one of Dr. Hawkins' books was people get beat themselves up because they think they're not making progress, and he's like, no, you kind of got to look at it like this: is like karma, the ego, all these drives that we were just discussing earlier. Think of it like one of those big boats or ships or whatever, cargo ships, um, and you just shut the engines off, but it doesn't just stop. The momentum has to keep going until it stops. So you're going to have to keep experiencing it and going like until the ship stops. But that doesn't mean that just means you keep the engine off. Like, but expect that it's going to keep going and it's going to take time to stop because there's like eons of karma like that are need to unfold. Like this energy needs to play itself out. Like it doesn't
mm,
happen snap. Sometimes it does. Like it's awesome when it does, but don't expect it. Like, don't expect it. um, but yeah, it's like you just have to know that you keep your compass set and don't deviate. Like the straightest a line is from A to B. Like
yeah,
keep your if you're at A, keep it at B. Like the best you can. Like you can't. If you slip, you go bring it back to B. Like, but
yeah,
don't sidetrack even a degree because as it's put in metaphor, even if you set your compass off a degree, you'll wind up in a whole different port because it's maybe it doesn't look much from this right now, but years
Hmm.
down the road, you were totally in a different path because just from 1 degree off on the compass. Like, um,
True.
so just keep your compass pointed and know and do your best to shut that engine off, but know that tank you're not going to stop something that's has eons of momentum behind it overnight.
Right.
Like,
Yeah. I don't know. That's kind of funny what you're saying about the 1 degree off. Because I guess it's kind of like the other conversation that we have about the path up the mountain and hitting the dead ends and how sometimes it can be more like a maze. So even in those detours, I'm like, it was supposed to happen, right? Because it happened.
yeah,
That's how we know it was supposed to happen. It happened. So
yeah,
I don't
expect that
know.
too. Dead ends are natural. Don't get
Yeah.
discouraged. Just tr- retrace your steps back and find another way up and find somebody maybe who has went up the path you're looking for. Like, um,
Yeah.
traditionally be teachers or gurus or whatever, but like or saints, like or you know Christ. If you don't want to take anybody else, can you take Christ, Buddha, Krishna? Take one of them. Like they all told you the same thing too. Like, but
Yeah.
um, but yeah, it's okay to hit dead ends. Everybody's gonna hit dead ends. We're also gonna go down the mountain a little sometimes, retracing our steps. It happens. It
Yeah.
happened to me many times. Like I don't think anybody can avoid it. I don't know of anybody who avoided it. That including Christ, Buddha, and Krishna. By the way, well, I don't know about Krishna, but Christ
Right.
and Buddha described a lot of agony, like on their way back to God, so to speak. And they detailed it
Hmm.
pretty well, or it's been accounted like in the Bible, what Christ and his temptations and the Garden of Yosemite and all that kind of stuff. And the Buddha talked about on his way to enlightenment, he was attacked by demons and like Maya, not Maya, Mara. And if they couldn't avoid it, what the heck thinks you're gonna avoid it?
Right.
Like, like, are you special? You're better than Christ and the Buddha? Come on, man. Like you, if they had to go through it, you're gonna have to go through it. So, like, just expect it, suck it up, like, and
Yeah.
keep your compass set, and just keep going, man. Like, but yeah, you're gonna hit dead ends. You're gonna go down the mountain. It's part of it, and everybody's not look, like even people climb Mount Everest, not everyone wants to go to the summit. Some are content going high enough, and they've achieved a lot going to where they were because so many people who died
Right.
trying to go that high. Um,
Uh-huh.
like you don't have to go to the summit, like in metaphor. Like
Hmm.
that's not everybody's path is different, but everybody's coming from the same source, so to say. Like that's what I was, you know, to go full circle.
Yeah. Different
Yeah,
parts of the journey.
yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's something to be said for the detours and the other things. It's just, yeah, it is part of it. It's kind of like so I've been listening to the Four Agreements book again this week, and the first agreement in that is to be impeccable with your word. And he says to be impeccable is without sin. So it's like, how can you be without sin in your words? And like, you're already setting yourself up to fail, but the intention to be without sin in your words, that's a very pure thing, I think. It's the hardest one. It's the hardest one to try to do. And like I said, you're only human, so you're not going to be completely without sin in your word. It's not possible, but it's a good thing to strive for.
Yeah. And that's the important part is that like the compass analogy again, and the metaphor or whatever,
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
just keep it there. Just keep it there. Um um like it's hard to go into religion because religion carries a lot of baggage. That's why there's so many different sects for any given religion. But um,
Hmm.
uh, what I liked about David R. Hawkins is he said, just get above 200 and don't worry about the rest. God will take care of the rest. Just keep your eye on God, and that's it. And I think that
Yeah,
Krishna even said the same thing in the now that comes to mind in the Bhagavad Gita. Like he says, just keep your heart on me. That's it. That's all I want
yeah,
from you. That's all I ask. Isn't that what just Christ asked as well? Just keep your heart on God. Just keep your heart on
mhm,
me. Like I'll take care of the rest. Like just don't turn away from me. Like that's
yeah.
it. like
And
and
that's
I'll
for
do the
your
rest.
own benefit,
Yeah.
honestly, because that's what agony is. It's a disconnection from God. And it's
Yes.
not because he's not there.
Yeah.
It's because you've turned your back for whatever reason. Or, that's my experience anyway. So, yeah, it's interesting. I don't know. I'm torn on talking about some of this stuff because it's one of those subjects. It's like I don't know how you say any of these things and they don't come off a little bit
Yeah.
preachy
Yeah.
or like I know it all or any of those sort of things. But it's like obviously we don't know it all.
Yeah.
If we knew it all, we would be enlightened.
Yeah. Obviously, that's the thing. What you just said. I also hesitate every time I go to speak about this. Like I have in the back of my mind, I there's no way I can say this without it coming off the wrong way. But there's also no way. What am I supposed to lie? Like so there's no way it can certain people are going to interpret it their own way, and at this point I'm like, well, I guess
Yeah.
that's their problem. but
I mean, we're all
but
flawed
yeah,
humans. So at the end of the day, I don't know. We're just trying to communicate the best we can.
yeah, that's unfortunately the we're limited to words to paint like a context, like we were talking about context earlier. You literally would have to write a book. That person would have to give a shit enough to read that entire book. And that's the only way you can get context because context is nonlinear and it literally can encompass books, volumes of books of information to build a context. So it's like we're limited
Mhm.
by words, and it's like it's hard to get people to even listen to enough of the paragraph before they put their own context onto it. And it's like so I get it. I get it. I
But isn't
understand,
that
and I
kind of
also get
going?
yeah. Like
I was just gonna say, isn't that kind of going back to what we were saying, or you were saying in the beginning about how we make it too complicated? The whole concept is very simple,
yeah,
so there's no need of a book.
yeah. Well,
Not
technically
really.
no. Yeah.
If it's really that simple,
Mm,
but we make it complicated.
yeah.
It's kind of like we had a little thing a few days ago where I misunderstood something because it was a text thing, and we know this. Sometimes we get it confused when it's text and not voice. And I thought I had done something, but after we talked, it kind of got sorted out or whatever. But it's like there's this miscommunication or whatever. Um, where was I going with that? Oh, the simplicity of it. The simplicity is I already have this agreement with you from months ago. We'll talk about if there's a conflict, you're going to tell me. You're a very direct person. So you would just have said, but there was like this thing that crept into the back of my mind and was like, oh no, I've done something and I hadn't.
Yeah.
Um,
Which I kind of
but it's
find
like if I
hilarious.
could just,
I was like,
yeah,
what? How did you get that?
yeah,
Like,
yeah, you're like cracking up about it. And I'm like, oh yeah, we have this basic intention already set. that we'll discuss whatever, and we have discussed all sorts of different things, and we know we can deal with that.
Mm.
So it's like I made it complicated instead of going back to that intention, that prior agreement. It's just a good example, I think, how we torture ourselves making something more complicated than it is. It's
Yeah,
funny.
we're all guilty of it. I do it all the time too, and I find it
Mm-hmm.
hilarious when I catch myself. No, that's the difference now. I could catch myself in a little spiral, and then eventually I become aware of it. I'm like, this is freaking retarded. I'm gonna go eat a sandwich.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. As you were like laughing about it, like, how did you get that? I'm like, I don't know. There was like a little bit of me like, seriously, how did I get to that spot? I don't know. But it didn't take me long to laugh about it. But I was just like, thank God I didn't send a wall of text. I was like rattling around in my brain. But it would have been fine. You wouldn't have been offended.
Yeah. No, I like when people are direct to me. That was another thing.
Mhm.
I realized that like um, the golden rule is true in the most general of general senses, but is not the highest spiritual truth. And why? And we could just go back to make it simple, like the 16 personalities. The 16 personalities, what makes them different from this model is they interact with the world and expect different things from different people.
Mhm.
I like it when people are direct to me. Like, and
Yeah,
because I like that and follow the
you
golden
expect
rule,
it.
are direct with people. Like,
Mhm.
and not everybody wants that. So therefore, do unto others as you will do unto you is not the highest of truth because we're all different and we don't do that. We can't.
Yeah,
It is true in the most general sense. Yeah, we don't want to kill each other and murder each other. Blah, blah, blah. In that sense, yes, it's very,
right.
very true. Very, very true. But like, obviously, we don't want to be
We
treated.
don't have the same wants. We don't
Yes,
have the
yeah,
same, needs.
yeah. Because I hate it
Yeah.
when
Well,
people are
even
direct.
like,
Yeah. Like,
yeah, even like just looking at how we are having this dream experience in the
mm,
beginning. Yours is much more of a thinker. Mine is this visual sort of feeling.
mm,
So it's like, even in that, our personality types, that makes sense why we experience it a little bit different, even though it's something very similar,
mm,
I think.
yeah, yeah. Well, technically, yeah, it even falls apart. I mean, it gets people get insane, but like even believe it or not, some people want to be murdered. Like, like there's a guy like you like these true crime kind of things too. I'm sure you
Mhm.
heard of the famous case here in Germany where this guy went on Craigslist and you found a guy who he wanted him to kill him and eat him, and he did.
Yeah, yeah,
like like that really does not hold up. Like it is like um a general rule, but it's not the highest rule. You can easily pick that one apart.
yeah.
like
It's fascinating what some people will do.
uh,
Well, it's kind of like the example you were saying earlier about dying to be correct, dying to be right. Like, I think I shared this story with Sharon and Brandon's show about I had a patient. There was nothing wrong with this dude. We were checking him out. We were almost done with the procedure. Everything was normal. But the whole time when we were taking him to the room to do the procedure, he's like, I'm going to die. I'm going to die. I'm going to die. He died. he just, he decided, and the body does what it does. The body crystallizes in whatever you determine. If you're determined to die, well, by God,
yeah.
he left this world. I was just like,
Mm,
this is the most bizarre out of all the cases and things I saw. I think that one's the one that kind of bothered me the most.
yeah. Then again, like all the people I've known have say have had cancer. I have many people in my life that have had cancer and died. and all of them, there's the couple that did beat it and stayed around for another decade or whatever, refused to
Hmm.
give in to the whole "you're gonna die in 6 months" thing.
Yeah.
All the people I knew who died, as soon as they told me you had 6 months, a year, or whatever, usually died way before that. They just
Yeah.
gave up. Like, so with
Yeah.
the they held it in mind. Oh, I'm gonna die, and they died. Like, but
Hmm.
everybody was like, nope, kept kicking another decade or on. Like, so, um,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. That's a whole other set of things I could talk about at some point about the power of words and disease and all of that stuff, diagnosing people. And there's a lot of conflict I have about that stuff. But, you do what you know at the time. So I've done my best to let a lot of that go, but it's like, ugh, I don't like to think about it.
Yeah. Mm.
Yeah.
Mm. I'd
So,
rather leave. We do have to like start wrapping it up, but I don't want to leave it on that note. That note sounds,
yeah, I don't either.
yeah.
Like, how did we go from the dreams to this? I'm not exactly.
Yeah, there's got to be a better note, like to leave the song. You have to have a
Mm,
good ending for a song. Even if it's a song that's melancholy or whatever, you got to have a good outro.
mhm.
Well, to quote my friend Brandon, you were perfect. It's true. Everybody, you're perfect.
It's true.
You are perfect. You're perfectly expressing yourself right now. You were perfectly expressing yourself back then. Even if you look back now, like, oh, how could I have thought that? How could I have done that? Blah 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 blah. You were
Mhm.
perfectly expressing that which what you were back then, and right now you're perfectly expressing what you are right now, and with your compass set. As you progress and you let things go and you gain clarity and more lovingness and compassion, blah blah blah, you begin to express that perfectly.
Yeah.
So everything in creation is perfectly expressing what it is, and there's no reason to judge it because certain things you needed to experience to, like you burn your hand on the stove, now you know not to touch the stove, or for example, like, um,
Mhm.
you have to go through certain experiences to, which what I found out um, some months back, where I was being very prideful and arrogant sometimes. And I realized, I might not be completely right now because I've been wrong many times in the past. I don't know the overall scheme of the totality of everything to know God's plan for this person or whatever, or this event or whatever.
Mhm.
So it's kind of arrogant to think I do. And then looking back at my own experience, I needed to go through certain things to gain an overall understanding of what I didn't want or what was not the
Yeah.
right way. Or, okay, this is dead end. So maybe it's time to retrace my steps and go back. But it's part of the path. You're perfectly expressing what you are at any given time. Um,
Yeah.
and you perfectly needed to even go through the bad things perfectly so that you can be the next level of perfect, but in a more joyous, compassionate, on and on kind of deal.
Yeah.
So you like that note better? I like that note
I do
better.
too. Yeah. That's a much better place to end it
Yeah.
for sure.
All right. Well, we definitely should wrap it up. It is getting late here in Germany right now, and I need to
Yeah.
get to bed. Um, so thank you everybody for joining us for another. What's the name of our show? See, that's why I gotta go.
Where the mind wanders.
Where the Mind Wanders with Spoons and Joe, and thank you for tuning in with us this week. We premiere at 3:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on Mondays, and we also have a Telegram channel that I keep forgetting to post stuff in. But Spoons has promised she will post it if I forget. So, You can listen to us there on Telegram or see our YouTube premiere or catch us after the premiere. We're on YouTube until YouTube takes it down. We're always there, I guess. So,
Yeah.
and until next time, guys. Take care.
Yeah.